There is a kind of strength that does not break, does not bend, does not negotiate, and the samurai of feudal Japan discovered exactly how to forge it within themselves. Have you ever heard the stories about the ancient samurai? Stories about how disciplined, strong, courageous they were, and most importantly, how they had an unbreakable spirit or an unshakable will. The Japanese have a term for this, Hagane no Ishi, the will of steel. But there's a catch most people miss. Hagane no Ishi isn't something you're born with. It's a forging process, literally like steel being hammered, heated, cooled, and hammered again until it becomes indestructible. The samurai spent centuries perfecting this process. They called it Bushido, the way of the warrior. And it wasn't just about fighting. It was about forging a spirit that could not be broken by anything. Not by fear, not by pain, not by death itself. The will is completely linked to the spirit. People who have a weak spirit have a weak will, break easily, give up at the first adversity. But people who have a strong spirit fight until the end, until the last drop of blood, sweat, and tears. And today you'll discover exactly how these samurai achieved this level of will. Before we begin this journey, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment, "I will build a will of steel." This shows that you are committed to this transformation and helps me continue bringing you more content like this. I would like to take this opportunity to also thank each of you who are watching the channel's content, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Whether it's an encouraging comment, a comment about your transformation journey, your desires for improvement, or even when you comment on an area in which you need help. I always try to read and respond to as many comments as possible, and I genuinely want to help you improve in any aspect of your life. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. Now back to the video. Chapter 1. The Collapse. The story I'm going to tell you is about a man named Marcus. Marcus is a 34-year-old entrepreneur who built a tech startup from scratch. Over the past 5 years, he'd sacrificed everything, relationships, health, sleep, everything for the business. And it worked for a while. The company grew, investors arrived, the team expanded. Marcus was living the American dream until it all fell apart. A larger competitor launched a product that rendered his own obsolete. 2 key investors backed out. The team began to abandon ship. And Marcus, for the first time in his life, didn't know what to do. He'd always been the problem solver, the optimist, the leader. But now, sitting in his empty office at 2 a.m., he realized something terrifying. He had no idea who he was without success. His entire identity was built on winning, and now that he was losing, he was falling apart. Anxiety came first, then insomnia, then panic attacks. Within 2 weeks, Marcus could no longer make basic decisions. His brain simply shut down. The pressure had broken something inside him he hadn't even known could break. That's when a mentor of his, a half-Japanese, half-American investor named James Watanabe, noticed the collapse. James had spent years in Japan studying and training in a traditional dojo, and he said something Marcus never forgot. "You don't have a business problem. You have a problem of spirit. You built a house on sand, and now that the tide has risen, you are discovering that there is no foundation." Marcus didn't understand at first, but James continued. The samurai had a principle. Their spirit must be stronger than any external circumstance. They called it Hagane no Ishi, will of steel, and they had a specific system to forge this, not through success or daily achievements, but through something much deeper. Imagine the weight of those words in the dim glow of a failing office, the hum of dying servers like a funeral dirge. Marcus had chased metrics, users, valuations, headlines. Yet here was a man telling him the real metric was invisible, forged in silence and fire. In feudal Japan, samurai weren't just swordsmen, they were walking philosophies. Bushido wasn't a code scribbled on scrolls, it was lived in the marrow. The 7 virtues, Gi righteousness, Yu courage, Jin benevolence, Rei respect, Makoto honesty, Meiyo honor, Chugi loyalty, weren't decorations. They were the hammer strikes that shaped a soul. Marcus had built an empire on one virtue alone, ambition. The rest were rusting. Chapter 2. The Principle of Fire. James took Marcus to a traditional Kenjutsu dojo operating in a nondescript basement in the city center. The air smelled of polished wood and centuries of sweat. The dojo's master was a 70-year-old man named Tanaka-sensei, a direct descendant of a samurai line that traced back to the Sengoku period, when warlords clashed like titans and a single betrayal could erase a clan. The first thing Tanaka said to Marcus wasn't about technique, it was about steel. Tanaka held an ancient katana, its Haman line, a wavy temper pattern like frozen lightning gleaming under the lantern. Do you know how steel is made? Ordinary iron is weak, it breaks easily. But when you heat iron to 1,500 Ga-C, add carbon from pine charcoal in the Tatara furnace, hammer it thousands of times on an anvil echoing with ancestral rhythm, quench it in sacred spring water, and repeat this process over weeks, you create Hagane jewel steel, something completely different. Steel that can cut through armor yet flex without snapping. He pointed at Marcus. Your spirit is now iron, soft, fragile. The first real pressure deformed it. Bushido is the process of turning iron into steel, but you can't jump over fire. Marcus was hoping for some kind of meditation technique or mental exercise, something he could add to his routine. Tanaka laughed, a sound like splitting bamboo. You're still thinking about adding things. Bushido isn't about adding more things. It's about removing everything that's weak until only what's indestructible remains. Over the next few weeks, Marcus discovered that Bushido wasn't a motivational philosophy. It was a brutal system of deconstructing and reconstructing one's own identity, like a sword folded 15 times, creating 32,768 layers, each fold expelling impurity. The first principle Tanaka taught was Shin, the principle of right spirit. In the Hagakure, the 18th century samurai text, it's written, "The way of the samurai is found in death." Shin began with something Marcus had never done, facing the very thing he feared most. Chapter 3. Facing the Void. What do you fear most? Tanaka asked in the first session, his voice steady as a drawn bow. Marcus started talking about losing the business, losing money, letting people down. Tanaka shook his head, eyes like polished obsidian. No, that's what you think you fear. What do you really fear? Marcus fell silent. The question cut deeper than any blade. Tanaka waited, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes of uncomfortable silence that stretched like a shakuhachi flute note across the dojo. Finally, Marcus spoke, and his voice broke. I'm afraid of being nobody, of being ordinary, of being forgettable. Tanaka nodded slowly. Now we're getting closer to the truth. You've built your entire life running away from this feeling. All the success, all the work, all the ambition. It was all to prove that you're not this thing you fear you are. And what happened when the success went away? The fear came back because you never faced it. You just covered it with achievements. The samurai had a specific practice for this. They called it memento mori before the Stoics ever whispered it in Roman forums. Every samurai meditated daily on their own death, not as morbidity, but as liberation. In the Hagakure, Yamamoto Tsunetomo wrote, meditation on inevitable death should be performed daily. Every day when one's body and mind are at peace, one should meditate upon being ripped apart by arrows, rifles, spears, and swords, and thus be prepared to directly confront the greatest human fear, complete annihilation. When you face death every day, minor problems lose their power over you. Losing money, you're going to die anyway. Losing status, you're going to die anyway. Failing publicly, you're going to die anyway. When we live with the awareness that one day we will leave, we make much more of our time and we seek to build something truly concrete, something that goes beyond the material, something that spans generations. When I speak of doing something extraordinary, I'm not telling you to be the next Nikola Tesla or to change the course of humanity. This extraordinary feat could be changing the reality of your family, being someone unforgettable for your children, your siblings, your community. You may not change the world, but you can help the people you love in ways that echo through their bloodlines. Tanaka gave Marcus an exercise that seemed insane at first. Every morning before doing anything, sit in silence for 20 minutes and visualize your own end in detail. Imagine your body stopping, heart stuttering, breath fading. Imagine the world continuing without you, emails unanswered, dreams unbuilt, your name fading from conversations. Imagine that nothing you built matters in the cosmic ledger. Marcus found this depressing. But Tanaka explained, you find it depressing because you're avoiding it. A samurai doesn't avoid it, he faces it. And when you face death enough times, it stops controlling you. In the shadow of Mount Fuji, samurai once sat in zazen beneath cherry blossoms, petals falling like fleeting lives, training the mind to embrace mono no aware, the pathos of things. Marcus was about to step into that same fire. The first week was a psychological hell. Every morning, Marcus sat on the worn tatami, eyes closed, forcing himself to visualize the end. The room smelled of incense and old wood. Outside, the city roared like a distant battle. His mind rebelled with every excuse. "This isn't healthy. You're wasting time. You should be working on the business." But he kept going. And in the second week, something strange happened. The fear began to lose its grip, not because he distracted himself, but because he stared into its eyes. When you look at any fear directly for long enough, it loses the mystical power it once held. The anxiety about the business was still there, but now it seemed smaller. Compared to death-complete annihilation, losing a startup was manageable. The samurai understood something profound about fear. You can't control whether you feel it, but you can control whether it controls you. A Stanford neuroscientist who has studied fear responses for 18 years discovered that when you repeatedly expose the brain to a fearful stimulus in a controlled environment, the amygdala, the almond-shaped alarm center, literally shrinks its reactivity. The brain learns this is not a threat to survival. This is the mechanism behind exposure therapy, but the samurai practiced it centuries before fMRI machines. They sat in graveyards at midnight, walked battlefields littered with corpses, and trained until the stench of death became as familiar as rice. Tanaka didn't stop at the fear of death. He took Marcus deeper. You faced physical annihilation. Now face social annihilation. He explained the second principle of Bushido Jin, benevolence through strength. But before benevolence can bloom, you must eliminate the need for external validation. Samurai were trained from age 7 to be indifferent to public opinion, not out of arrogance, but because a warrior who craves applause is a puppet, and a puppet dies when the strings are cut. Tanaka gave Marcus an exercise that sounded absurd. Do something publicly embarrassing every week. Not harmful, not cruel, but deliberately judgment-inviting. Week 1, wear completely mismatched clothing in public. Week 2, sing loudly on a crowded subway. Week 3, dance alone in a busy square. Marcus resisted. This is ridiculous. How does this help the business? Tanaka was blunt. You still think your problem is the business. It's not. Your problem is that you cannot exist without approval. You need people to think you're successful, smart, capable. That makes you weak. When approval vanishes, and it always does, you crumble. A samurai can lose everything and remain intact because he does not derive identity from anything external. He is the steel, not the sword, not the armor, not the victory, the steel. In 1701, 47 Ronin waited over a year in deliberate disgrace, drinking, gambling, visiting brothels to convince their enemy they were broken men. When the moment came, they struck with perfect calm. Their honor was internal. Public shame was just weather. Marcus performed the first exercise with burning embarrassment. He left the house in a bright floral shirt, striped pants, and a ridiculous bucket hat. Every glance on the street was a dagger. His brain screamed, "Everyone is judging you. You look like an idiot." But after 30 minutes, nothing happened. No one attacked him. Most didn't even notice. And the few who smirked, their opinions changed nothing in his life. Week 2, he sang Bohemian Rhapsody on the subway. Mortification peaked, then cracked. People smiled. Someone clapped. He emerged unharmed. Week 3, he danced in the square to an imaginary beat. For the first time, he felt something new, not relief, but freedom. Freedom to be judged and remain whole. The samurai called this mujo, impermanence. Approval is temporary. Disapproval is temporary. Success is temporary. Failure is temporary. The only permanent thing is the spirit you forge. In the Hagakure, at all times, regard the world as a dream or illusion. Marcus was learning to live inside that truth. Chapter 6, The Steel Test. Marcus was beginning to understand, but Tanaka wasn't finished. The third principle of Bushido was the most brutal: gi righteousness through right action, even when it costs everything. "Do you know the difference between iron and steel?" Tanaka asked, gripping the katana. "Iron bends under pressure. Steel holds its shape." An iron spirit does the right thing when it's convenient. A steel spirit does it especially when it's not. He looked at Marcus. You have to make a decision about your business, and I know you've been avoiding it. Marcus swallowed. Tanaka was right. He needed to fire his co-founder, his best friend since college. The friend wasn't performing. He was coasting, dragging the company down. But Marcus had delayed the conversation for weeks. How do you tell the guy who believed in you first that he's no longer part of the dream? You're putting emotional comfort above righteousness, Tanaka said. That's iron. Iron bends when pressed. You're crushing your integrity to avoid discomfort. Steel doesn't negotiate. The samurai had a concept called giri duty above feeling. It didn't mean being cold. It meant when you know the right action, you do it, even if it tears you apart. In 1336, Kusunoki Masashige rode to certain death at Minatogawa to uphold loyalty to an emperor who had already surrendered. He didn't flinch. Gi demanded it. Marcus spent 3 days agonizing. Every time he reached for the phone, excuses flooded in. Maybe he'll improve. Maybe I'm overreacting. But on the 4th day, he remembered, steel doesn't negotiate. He scheduled the meeting. Chapter 7. The Impossible Conversation. The talk lasted 45 minutes and destroyed a 12-year friendship. There was anger, accusations, tears. Marcus left the cafe feeling gutted, questioning everything. Had he been cruel? Was it worth it? That night at the dojo, Tanaka simply nodded. Do you feel the pain? Yes. Good. That means you have heart. But you did what needed to be done anyway. That means you have a spirit of steel. Iron avoids pain. Steel accepts pain as the cost of integrity. The samurai understood. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite fear. Integrity isn't doing right when it's easy. It's doing right when it destroys you inside. This is Hagane no Ishi. Will of steel doesn't mean not feeling. It means feeling everything and acting correctly anyway. Marcus stood in the dojo doorway, city lights flickering beyond the paper screens. The blade on the wall caught the glow, its edge whispering a promise. The fire is just beginning. Chapter 8. Daily Practice. Tanaka knew that one heroic moment does not forge steel. Only the daily hammer does. The 4th principle of Bushido is rei, respect through ritual. Do you know why tea ceremonies exist? Tanaka asked, preparing matcha with the precision of a sword stroke. Bowl turned twice, whisk moving in perfect arcs. Form creates substance. When you repeat a form correctly every day, you become the form. Samurai rose at the same hour, winter or summer, blizzard or cherry blossom dawn. They trained because the way does not negotiate with mood. Tanaka gave Marcus a non-negotiable sequence, 4 a.m. Wake, no snooze. 15 minutes death, visualization. 100 perfect Vulcan cuts. 3-minute ice-cold shower. Breakfast prepared in silence. Every grain of rice placed with attention. Then, and only then, work. 100 days straight, Tanaka said. Sick, traveling, exhausted, no exceptions. Steel is rigid, iron is flexible. Marcus protested. What about balance? Tanaka's laugh was sharp. You've been flexible for 34 years. How is that working? Parenthesis. Flexibility is a virtue when facing external chaos, adapting to battlefields, weather, enemies. But internal flexibility, negotiating with your own laziness, is the path of rust. The shinobi bent like bamboo in the wind. The samurai stood like oak. Both survived, but only one became unbreakable. The first week was war. At 4, the alarm screamed. Marcus's mind counterattacked. 5 hours of sleep. One skip won't matter. But he remembered, steel does not negotiate. Feet hit the floor. The cold shower was torture body-locking, breath stolen, but it lasted exactly 3 minutes. Skipping it left guilt that lasted all day. By day 7, he woke 2 minutes early. By day 14, the 100 cuts flowed like water. By day 21, the ritual was no longer a fight. It was identity. An Oxford behavioral researcher confirms what samurai knew. Discipline is not a depleting fuel. It is a muscle that hypertrophies. Automate the first decision and the rest cascade. Chapter 9. The Collapse of the System. Day 32, 39 degrees C fever, flew like a demon in the lungs. Marcus could barely stand. His mind offered the perfect excuse, rest. No one expects this. Tanaka's voice echoed, steel is tested when the system collapses. Marcus did 10 seated cuts, splashed ice water on his face for 3 minutes, meditated 3 minutes lying down. Form adapted, never abandoned. 1 is always greater than 0. Chapter 10. The Inner Storm. Day 50, the business flickered back to life. A new investor. Team morale rising. Success whispered, "You've proven yourself. Sleep in, hot shower. You deserve it." Tanaka called this the poison of victory, more seductive than failure. Marcus nearly drank. For 3 mornings he hovered over the snooze button. Then he remembered, the practice is not for the business. The business serves the practice. Identity is constant. Results are weather. Chapter 11. The Moment of Truth. Day 73, investor vanished. Another resignation and a call father in surgery, another state. Chaos. In the hospital corridor, Marcus made invisible cuts with his fingers. In the bathroom, he splashed icy tap water for 3 minutes. Not perfect, continuous. Practice does not serve circumstances. Circumstances serve practice. A samurai trains because he is a samurai. The battle is irrelevant. Chapter 12. The Silent Transformation. Day 100 arrived without drums. Marcus woke, cut, showered, ate, then faced the world. Problems still came, but he met them like a cliff meets waves, unmoved. Tanaka summoned him. "You have completed 1 cycle. What is Hagane no Ishi?" Marcus, acting correctly regardless of feeling. Tanaka lifted the katana. Deeper. A master smith folds steel 15 times, 32,768 layers. Each fold expels slag, air, weakness. These 100 days did not add strength. They removed weakness, fear of death, need for applause, allergy to pain. You did not build a new spirit. You uncovered the spirit, always there, pure, indestructible. Chapter 13. The True Meaning. Hagane no Ishi is subtraction, not addition. Samurai were not superhuman. They were human with everything superfluous burned away. 6 months later, the startup died. Doors locked. Team gone. Marcus stood in the empty office at 2 a.m. Same hour it once collapsed and felt intact, not happy, not relieved, whole. 3 weeks later, he began again. Same 4 ritual, new project, no drama. People asked, "How are you calm after losing everything?" Answer, "I was forged." The forging never ends. Life invents new fires. But now Marcus knows the steel can take any temperature. A Yale resilience study shows confidence is not affirmation, it is evidence. 100 survived fires become an unshakable core. I can handle this. You stand at the furnace door. The hammer is in your hand. The process is brutal. 4 alarms, cold water, impossible conversations, death in your mind's eye every dawn. But steel does not break. Steel cuts the world instead of being cut by it. This is Bushido. This is Hagane no Ishi. This is the will of steel. If this journey moved you, subscribe, ring the bell, comment, "I enter the fire." Most people quit at the first spark. You have watched to the end. You have already taken the hardest step. Now take the next. Start small. Never stop. Remove 1 weakness today. The hammer falls. The steel answers. Thank you for walking this path with me. Until the next forge.